Good morning. So I grew up kind of hating Gazans, right? So you might ask, how did that come to be? What does that even mean, right? So here's an interesting story that I do have. I have grew up in a school where there have been people from Gaza growing up, right? And to be frank, they were bullies. Most of the time they didn't have a lot of manners. They were violent, aggressive. They have had a lot of bad impression on me. You know, like I remember one person which was not one of the worst people. People used to call him like the twitchy one or the twitchy eye. So he had a thing where his eye, one of his eyes, were just constantly like twitching, sort of like you know, just constantly twitching. He looked very not right in the head. It just looked, something was wrong with this guy, right? But so this is the change. So within the past few years, I've been hearing about what's going on in that part of the world and in Gaza specifically. Um, I mean, for a long time, I have held a grudge against these bullies who have bothered me a lot in school. Um, but yeah, no, like right now, I forgive them. I forgive these people, these kids that right now might be my age. I hope they're doing all right. Um, but that's a story about what war and what hardship does to a person, what hardship does to a population. You might meet somebody, and we often do. Meet people who really have bad manners, bad culture. You could even say, as in like their whole like their interaction with their family, their interaction with other people is very rude. They're not nice to people around them. Nobody wants to be around them. They might be yelly, aggressive, with, with the whole shebang, right? um but you might consider that they might be coming from a rough place, and not in a way that you might be able to understand, and this kind of goes back to kind of talking about stuff that a person learns growing up. So you might be fortunate that you have learned good manners, or even but if somebody is growing up in a situation where, let's say, just like the people in Gaza are living now. I mean, they basically have been reduced to like animals, scavenge for food. There is no society anymore. You would be lucky if you could find something to eat. At that point, your animalistic instincts just kick in, and you become more, some people would say like animalistic, you know. So, you know, now is that right? Do they not have to work on themselves, those sort of people? Of course, they would have to work on themselves. Being rude, having no manners, being a bully is not acceptable, you know. But me personally, seeing what the stuff that these people are coming from, I do forgive them, and I wish them better. I wish, that they could heal, and they might not heal. This is the sad reality, when something like that, something this traumatizing happens to you when you're a kid. You might never heal from that. You might pass it on even to new generations. But I just wanted to put that out there. I guess just be mindful of people, where they come from, and I'm not saying that you should forgive people like that just because that they've been from a bad situation. That's not what I'm saying, but just keep that in mind, for better or for worse. It is just how the reality of things are and how the world is. And you know much hurt people, as they say. But yeah, that's just been an interesting thing. I used to hate Gazans, and then right now I more like, have more different feelings about them, like pity, some feelings of wishing that things could be different. You know, I know if I went back to like one of to those guys now and talk to them, they would probably insult me and not have any reasonable thing to say. They'd be like, "It's f you," I hate you, or you know. So, but yeah, thank you for watching.